I've been seeing a lot of dishonest conversation when it comes to quarterback play in the divisional round, more specifically comparing Jalen Hurts' performance to Josh Allen's. I don't want to do this. I feel like I've been talking negatively about Jalen Hurts more than I ever want to, but because of posts and a lot more that I've seen that are very similar, I feel compelled. I'll even lump Lamar into this conversation because while Josh did not play like Superman and had comparable numbers to Hurts and worse numbers than Jackson, what he did to separate himself was play mistake-free ball. Interceptions, fumbles, and sacks are all classified as negative plays for a quarterback, and against the Ravens, Josh had just one such play, and it was on this miscommunication that resulted in a 1-yard quote-unquote sack. Considering it was just a 1-yard loss, considering it was on 2nd and 16, the impact this had on the game was basically zero. But for the other two, the same thing cannot be said. The only reason why Lamar is going home and Jalen isn't is because the team that the Eagles played had just as many negative plays. Hurts had 8 negative plays. He lost a fumble, which was recovered by an Eagle, and he also was sacked 7 times. Had the Eagles ended up on the wrong side of this, the sacks that Jalen took could have ended up being the entire story. This first one came on 3rd and long. He holds onto the ball for far too long and then gets dropped, takes them out of a potential field goal opportunity. This second one came right before half on 2nd and 8. They're in field goal range again. This wasn't entirely his fault. It seemed like there was a breakdown with the protection. But instead of doing the responsible thing and just kind of going down to mitigate the loss, he tries to sidestep him in these conditions. And the ball pops free, and the original line of scrimmage, which was the 33, ends up going to the 48. Had Jalen just slid or fell straight to the ground like he's done many times, then it might be 3rd and long, but they're at the 39. They can use that 3rd down to get back into field goal range. But when the ball pops out and it ends up as far back as it did, that makes that difficult. And the last sack I wanted to highlight was, of course, the safety. I get he was injured, but that's no excuse to me. He needed to be far more situationally aware in this area of the field, especially if he was on a bum leg. Regardless if your mobility is limited or not, what you should be thinking in this area of the field is, I need to get this ball out fast. But what happens? He takes a full 5 to 6 yard drop back, gets to the top of his drop as if he's going to scan the field for some long developing option, and he barely gets a chance to even make it to his check down because the protection does break down for once. I know he's not used to that, but that's the risk you run anytime you're dropping back this deep in your territory, which made even less sense to me considering the context of his leg. But we didn't even get to see how costly it would turn out to be because Kyren fumbled just one play after. At this point of the season, a good game from a quarterback can look very different than what you're used to. Josh might not have had an average Josh Allen performance, but he did something that a lot of quarterbacks this weekend struggled to avoid, which was turning the ball over and suffering negative plays, and in my opinion, was the biggest reason why the Bills are now moving on. Also, check out the new podcast I'm doing with Football with Oz. We just dropped our 3rd episode, linked in bio.